Mr. Harris, I got a deal for you. 100 years to life. Okay, so you're under the pressure.
Right.
Silence is a source of great strength. What does that mean to you?
I think silence, it gives you the ability to attack from a position of strength. So when no one knows what you're thinking, you have the upper hand, because unconsciously sometimes we can convey a message and our nonverbal communications could kind of leak our intentions. So if you're silent on something, it's kind of hard to get a beat on how you feel or what you're thinking. So, in that sense.
Nice. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to How to Battle. Today, I'm talking to Travon Harris, a great man, not just a great man, a great friend. And actually, we were in the cell together for 2 years, right? We've known each other for a pretty long time. And I've seen Trayvon grow a lot. I've seen him grow so much. And we actually got out of prison not too far from each other as far as in time.
About 2-3 months apart.
About 2-3 months. We don't live that far from each other. We're like 10 minutes away.
Right.
And I don't know, it's something that was always like you have, like something that stands out about you. And it's, it's a very unique thing. And it's this, that like you've never changed. Like who you are is the person you were as far as when you were in prison and now. And I'm talking about not maybe your behavior, because obviously you've grown a lot since you were involved in that life that we both were involved in, but I'm talking about like just who you are as a person, like that real person, like you're just real. And it didn't matter if you were in prison, on maximum security prison, or if you're out here.
Right.
You're just always been you. And that's such a rare thing. And that's like actually a gift and a great quality. So I think that's why we connected and vibed so well from the beginning.
Right.
So thank you for being here today. I've interviewed you before when I was first starting off on YouTube. I think like this was a while ago. I just gotten out.
2 years ago?
Yeah, you had just gotten out.
Yeah.
And we were fresh out, and I interviewed you like in the middle of a parking lot somewhere, right?
And we were in the car.
So this was like a long time ago, and I feel like we've grown so much since then. So it's very refreshing to be able to do this. So I just want to start here, because we never really talked about this as far as publicly.
Right.
Me and you spent time in a cell, so I got to know you very well, and vice versa. But like, tell us about your story, your journey, your life, things that are important to you that you feel like had like those impact events. Right. So tell us about you.
First of all, I want to thank you for the compliment, man. I really appreciate that, man, because sometimes, we do need to be reminded of, who we are as people, and, we do need our flowers when appropriate. But just to give you some background on my story, like, I grew up in a ghetto environment, very tense, man, very tense. So, growing up in a neighborhood, it was about identity, so my idea of what a man was a criminal because I lived in a small bubble. Like I grew up on the west side of LA, AKA the jungles, Baldwin Hills Village, and, we don't leave. And so we develop ideas about, entrepreneurship, manhood. We develop these ideas around gang culture. And so to like a small sample would be, men fight to squash a debate or an argument, in a neighborhood, that's what we did. We pronounced our dominance by fighting each other and, hey, we go play basketball right after that.
Right.
And so, those are things, the behavior and some of the traits that we develop young. I'm talking about 7, 8 years old. And my father was gone. My father had life in prison, and I always heard good things about him. I never heard nothing bad. And my godfather, which is his best friend, kind of like was there for me when I was growing up. So I would always be by his house with his son. And it's crazy. His son is like 4 or 5 years older than me, and he went to prison. And I went to prison. We both caught life in prison. But my godfather was a criminal. This dude was like full-fledged in the game. And so when I was 4 years old, you know, okay, that's a man. He take care of the household. He had nice cars. You know, this is what we're supposed to do. He talked to me about my dad. Oh, my dad was a stand-up individual. He was this. So, okay, naturally, I feel like I have to be that same man. You know, so it wasn't about being a criminal. It was about identity, developing and becoming a man. You know, so those were the warped ideas that I had as a youth growing up in a community where, you know, it was intense.
Yeah.
You know, you had to like, you know, squabble for every inch of your respect.
Yeah.
You know, if you didn't stand up for yourself, you was nothing. And, you know, social suicide was worse than actually getting your ass whooped. You know, if you didn't stand up for yourself, you were excommunicated. And that hurt more than the ass whooping. So, you know, in certain levels, we developed these intense characteristics because of how we grew up, because of the things we experienced. And so as I ventured off into my adolescent years, like around 13, 14, you know, I started to have an idea of how am I going to support myself? Like, you know, I want to have nice clothes. I want to have nice shoes. Like, so how can I get that? And, you know, there never was a blueprint to say, hey, you got to do a resume. You got to get a skill. It was more like, hey, here go the 7 grams of crack. And this is how you earn your leisure. You earn your time. You get your money by selling drugs. Yeah. And like I said, my godfather sold drugs. My father sold drugs. And then I had older cousins that were gang members. And these guys about 8, 10, 13, some even 15 years older than me. They were involved in the gang lifestyle. So they were hustling. And so it was like a rite of passage. I want to say, like, you don't realize like this is wrong because you see it every day. So you might walk outside and see like 10 dudes outside selling crack, and you might be like, oh, that's normal. But it's really not. But that's just what you see every day. You digest your environment every day, and it becomes normal. And so, you know, unfortunately, I engaged into, you know, the gang lifestyle and ventured off into it. And, you know, becoming a gang member gave me an identity. It gave me my passage to manhood. So when people say, oh, you know, I was influenced, I don't think it was influence. I just think it was cultural. Like, it was just what it was. Right. It's either you be this or you're not a man.
That's deep. Yeah, that's really deep. So much there. Like, do that, just what you said, is just so much there we could dig into for hours on each of those topics. Yeah. But it's very important that you touched on them, because it actually like creates this, even for me coming from that type of world, it creates this whole different perspective on things. Like, you're in an environment where you normalized criminal behavior. So selling crack, fighting, all that is like normal within that community.
Yeah, it's normal.
Right? And so like, how does one grow up in a community like that, like you grew up in, and not go down that path? Because some people have grown up where you grew up in the jungles and not been a gang member and not sold crack and not went to prison, right?
Right.
So how do you think they did it? Because I can't even say, but I'm just like, from your perspective, how do you think they were able to duck and dodge that and actually do something different?
Mentorship. I guarantee you, it was somebody in that person's life that sparked the idea in their head that they didn't need to do that. You just don't develop this on your own. It's impossible because the environment is so powerful. The elements, you know what I mean? The need to survive, the need to thrive, you know, and you know, everybody's poor. And so once you concentrate a group of poor people on top of each other, you know, what happens is, you know, no one wants to feel poor, so they start buying Jordans, you buy clean clothes, you know, you still poor, but you don't want to feel poor. You don't want to look poor. You know what I'm saying? So if I got on some brand new shoes and I got on a nice outfit with them, I'm poor, but I don't feel poor. And so what happens is, like, that same person you were talking about has somebody in their life that said, hey, look, this is an alternate route because you can do this. And not only did they respect that person, but it was more, they didn't want to disappoint that person. You see, the people I didn't want to disappoint was the homie selling crack. Oh yeah, you let the dude push you, you didn't fight him? Oh nah, social suicide, you know. So now my mentors, you know, you gotta meet aggression with aggression. You know, and so for me, it was those people was my mentors, and the person that didn't engage in the lifestyle I chose had a different type of mentor. I don't care if it was a coach, a teacher, you know, a uncle, a parent. It could be somebody, but they were afraid to disappoint that person. And so when you have respect for somebody, you don't want to disappoint them.
Yeah, social suicide, you said it a few times, and it's just a powerful thing that I kind of like glaze over a lot, but it's so true. It's almost like how like cancel culture today,
Right.
you know, like in that world, in that gang environment, social suicide, like if you do that, you could even become a victim. You can become preyed upon, right? You can be cut off from the water hole, so to speak. Now you can't eat and drink, you can't survive. It's such, and so social suicide actually, it's just like, it's such a powerful message that just from those words. But do you see the relation like in that and then the way like cancel culture is today, or even like you see any relation from what you call social suicide to like something similar today that people who don't come from that environment can kind of connect it to?
Well, social suicide is more extreme. So like my peers, right? I grew up, let's say it's 5 of us, we're all 5th graders, and we start going into middle school. Now we're going to a middle school to where they're not just kids from our neighborhood where we grew up. You know, we grew up hearing blood, right? But now we're going to a school where it's some other kids, they grew up, they say cuz. And so now you don't want to gangbang, right?
Yeah.
But your friends are like, look, the older homie such and such said we're not supposed to get along with these dudes. And so what happens is, at 11 years old, you make a slight decision to say, you know what, I'm going to represent my neighborhood, not gangbanging, but I'm going to let these kids know that this is where we from. We say blood, and y'all say cuz. And then there's the conflict because Bloods and Crips don't get along, right?
Right.
So now there's a conflict, right? So the conflict arises, and before you know it, you like, man, I don't want to do this, but man, I want to stay hanging with my friends. And if I don't got my friends, who am I as a kid? You know, because friendships as kids are important to us. And so it's peer pressure. So now here it is, we're going to a middle school, and now we're going to school with a group of kids that, frankly, it's crazy because you get along with some of them. Your friends, because you know them before you get to school because y'all play sports together. And so you be like, oh man, you live over here, I live over here, but you my friend, but you say cuz and I say blood, and I don't know how this is gonna work, you know?
Yeah, you wear a different color.
Right. So it's the pressure, the pressure of your older, say like you're 12, your older homie that's 17, 16, he might say, why you hanging with him? He a Crip, why you hanging? But this your friend though. Yeah. And so now, social suicide, right? If you don't meet him with force, you gotta go home.
Yeah.
And your older homie gonna be like, hey man, you hanging with the Crips? And so now, like you said, that could be a danger to your existence in your own neighborhood. Yeah. And so you start breaking friendships with people that you genuinely liked. You're like, this is my friend. I play basketball and football with him. Yeah. But now we can't be friends no more.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Crazy. What is it like? What was it like growing up in the jungles? And what was one of the most, like I would say, traumatic experiences you witnessed or heard of in that environment?
In the jungles, man, I'm pretty sure in everybody's neighborhood, but I'm just gonna speak from my experience. But like we had this thing where we call, you know, the older homies were bullies. They were terrorists, right? So when we came from school, slap boxing, headlocks, wedgies, you name it, right?
Yeah.
It's all that, right? But as kids, we would say, man, they play too much. I don't want to walk down that street because they play too much. That's mean they terrorizing us, right? Yeah. And so what happens, I remember being bullied until I would cry and just start fighting. Like, you know what? I'm tired of running from y'all. I'm tired of y'all playing. You know what? I'm just gonna fight y'all. And so what happens, you become over aggressive. So the bullies, the older homies that's saying they getting us ready, right? Which they, in a sense they are. They getting us ready. What happens is that they turn a switch in your brain that it kind of like makes you like no empathy for nobody. So if one of your friends is weak, you look at them like, hey man, if you weak, it's gonna rub off on me. And they gonna take it out on me. So you can't be weak. If you weak, I'm gonna turn my back on you too.
Right. Wow.
Right?
That's deep. Yeah. And you said getting you ready. I get that. I get that.
Getting you ready.
But like, elaborate a little bit on that.
So, for example, you might at 13, 14 years old, you might got to fight somebody that's 16. At 14 and 16, there's a very physical differences as teenagers. A kid that's 14 encounters a kid that's 16. The kid that's 16 has a 2-year growth spur on him. He's stronger, he's faster.
Yeah.
So growing up, they teach you like it doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter how strong they are. Win, lose, or draw, even if it's meant for you to die, you're supposed to die fighting, despite how scared you are. Because if you don't fight, you got to come back here. And guess what? We're not going to accept you. Like I say, social suicide, right? So if you don't stand up for yourself, this is what can happen. So what happens is this, right? They say they're getting you ready for violence. They're getting you ready. They're going to put you through the most extreme line of violence to make sure when you step outside of this neighborhood, you're going to make it. When you go to juvenile hall, you're going to make it. When you go to prison, county jail, you're going to make it. When you go to a Martin Luther King parade, because unfortunately we go to the Martin Luther King parade and we fight, you're going to make it. So, they're preparing you for war.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, they're toughening you up, preparing you mentally, because every day they're like bullying you and they're pushing you and they're like, getting you ready for those things that are coming in life. Right?
Torture.
Yeah, torture.
It's torture. But this is the environment we grew up in.
Yeah.
And just to go a little further on what you said, some of the most traumatic things I saw, I will never forget one of the older individuals in the neighborhood. He probably was like 19, we like 12. When you see people shot and somebody that gave you $1 to go to the ice cream truck, you're like, oh, this is my big brother. He's sitting there shot, breathing hard, like breathing slowly. You see the blood trickling. Like when you see these things, you like, oh wow. Even though he survived, it's a switch that clicks in your brain that says, okay, this is real life. This is my environment. This is what it is. So, it brings a sense of rage in you, violence, because in order for you to become that violent, you have to become enraged, right? It's just not getting angry. It's levels to it, right? So you have to be able to click a switch in your brain in order to get there. Right. And sometimes it's those memories that get you there. Like you see somebody shot, your big brother, you call him, oh yeah, it's go time. You might be at the mall, and you might hear somebody say cuz, you might hear somebody say whatever, wherever you from, but it's those memories that get you to react in public like that, Right. And then we were taught wrong, because I'm not standing on none of that shit. It's all bad. But those are the things we grew up with, and they kind of fostered a lot of aggression,
What are some valuable lessons that you learned growing up in the jungles that you took into prison, help you maybe survive in prison, and then out even to this day that you still have? Because I feel that in some way we gain something through our struggles and through our adversities. Like we gain something through that. Like we get something from that, whatever that is. But what is something for you that you gained from that you still have today that you feel is like a strength?
When I was young, they told me, if you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
Be a man of your word. I learned that at I was 12, 13 years old. So if I had a friend that I had an altercation with, and I told big bro, hey, when I see him, we going to get down. If you don't get down with him, I'm going to get down with you.
Yeah.
So next time you see him, y'all better fight. And so those things like that. And also, if you say, hey, man, I'm going to let you use my game, don't lie. Because if you lie, you're going to be looked at as a bullshit individual. And, that was, like I say, once again, I always use this term, social suicide, because my reputation and how people see me, I wanted that to be the forefront. I wanted that to be everything, So that's why to this day, I think I'm big on my word, and I'm always loyal. I always move with integrity because of that. Because like I'm gonna do the right thing when nobody looking, because that's how I was taught. You know?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's exactly one of the ones that definitely stands out to me too. That loyalty, that keep your word, how important that is, and what was instilled in us at a young age.
Absolutely.
Like that's something that we keep.
Yeah.
Right? That's something that we continue to have.
Right.
So you went to prison. Talk about that, like what you went to prison for, how much time you got, and how much time did you do, and then like how did you get out? Like,
Right.
You know.
So in 2006, I was arrested for intimidated witness by force or threat for the benefit of a criminal street gang. Now, for those that don't know, when I just said that subsection for the benefit of a criminal street gang, it enhances your sentence. So unfortunately for me, my sentence was enhanced, even though they said I intimidated a witness by force or threat, there was no weapons used, nobody was physically harmed. Due to the fact that I was a gang member, it enhanced my sentence to a life sentence. So I couldn't get 25 to life or 15 to life. So a life sentence is 7 years to life. So if you just get flat life, basically what they're saying is 7 years to life. So I received 7 years of life for intimidated witness. I went to trial. I lost my case.
How'd that feel? Because I don't think I ever talked about that. Like when you were sentenced to life in prison for intimidating a witness, like basically saying like, I'm going to kick your ass if you do this or that.
Right.
People do it all day, every day.
Right.
Like on social media, everybody sees it, but you get life in prison for that. I mean, it just really pisses me off when I think about this, like the justice system and the way that it is designed to lock people up of color, and they create these laws specifically for that reason, knowing that we're growing up in this environment,
right?
And then like you're most likely going to be a gang member,
right?
And then you're going to give me life because I'm a gang member for intimidating. It's crazy. But how'd that feel when you got sentenced to that?
Well, I knew I was going to prison when I was a teenager. It's not because I wanted to. It was just how the way it was, you know. You in the streets, you might go to prison. You carrying guns, you're gonna go to prison. So like, I kind of knew I was going to prison, but I just didn't think I would get a life sentence. You know, you get in denial to things. So like, I was in denial to that part. But when I got sentenced, it was kind of like I really didn't understand. Like, cause as you speak, the crime doesn't make sense. So I'm like, what are they talking about? And so I knew I was going to get found guilty. I knew I was going to get life. I just was like, it wasn't that bad. But I want to say about 6 months into the life sentence, I was in reception, and I was walking a child, and it hit me. I said, oh shit, this is bad. You know, because I think sometimes denial could block you from harmful things. You know, I think I was kind of like in denial for the first little 6-5 months. And, you know, when you gang banging, it kind of like, as weird as it sounds, right? It helps you get through the hard times because everybody's going through something. And so y'all kind of like group together and y'all build together, and it's kind of like helps you block it out. But I was walking the child one day and I looked up, I saw the tower, and he looked at me, and I said, damn, this is bad. You know, that's when it kicked in. I said, oh man. And I started thinking about, oh, I'm gonna go to level 4, maximum security prison. Oh man, I gotta, you know, only thing I was worried about is like not knowing how to survive. I knew I was gonna be okay, but I was like, damn, how am I gonna make a knife? Or who's gonna teach me? Or like I need to, my main thing was learning how to do time. Like, you know, that was my main thing because I knew I was gonna be there. And I was like, man, it's intense, and I need to learn all the tricks and the trades to make it, you know? Yeah.
What was your turning point in prison? Because you went in young, you continued to gangbang, you're getting into trouble. What was the turning point for you, and what created that?
Like I said, you know, we grew up being a man of our word, and we grew up believing in the constitutionality part of the criminal lifestyle. So if someone violates a rule that's considered to be unforgivable, right? It's supposed to be a point where it's supposed to happen. That's the Constitution. But once I seen the hypocrisy in the gang lifestyle, I started realizing, I said, man, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. Like, you believe in something that doesn't even believe his own values. So how could you therefore hold up to something that has no core, no foundation, you know? And so what start happening is I started reading a lot. I want to say I came to prison and you know, I wasn't really like educated like that, but I could read and write, but I don't think I was really book smart. So what I started doing was I said, you know what, I'm gonna get book smart. I started reading a lot of books about history and stuff like that. And you start reading and I swear it starts unlocking doors that you never knew existed in your brain. And I would read about history, and I would watch documentaries, and I would try to understand things. And I swear, I started changing because I started saying, this doesn't make sense. Like, how could we say this, but when this is happening right now? And so it's a slow, gradual change. It doesn't happen overnight. So I think in 2012, it dawns on me. But the real inner works of the change, it was like a 5-year work. I know that's a long time, but I want to say from 2012 to 2017 was a lot of trial and error. You know, it took me 5 years to really just make a decision and stand on it, man. Like, I can't do this no more. Because like I say, you know, social suicide, like I couldn't feel like I could walk away from being a gang member because it's not just peer pressure, but these are my friends. I consider them my friends. And there's a lot of good people in prison that are gang members. They're operating from a constitution. You know how like America has the Constitution, and you ever meet a military guy, he's like, I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in the Constitution. And you're like, I understand because I believe in my same Constitution at one point. But the Constitution that I believed in, the laws didn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? It's like, wait a minute, that doesn't add up. That's not logical. You know?
What was one of your favorite books?
Man, one of my favorite books, you introduced me to it, man. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. That book, man, was like so deep because that dude was like a warrior mentally. He embraced the most trying, awful, just circumstances. And he made it his mission to say, I'm going to embrace it with dignity and I'm going to triumph over it. You know, he said, look, as long as I got my mind, they can have these clothes, they can have my book, they can have everything. But I'm going to have my mind. I'm going to have the freedom to think. Once you lose the freedom to think, you're dead. And I think that really impacted me. I said, damn, that's the deepest shit I ever read, man. It was deep.
It's crazy how like books have the power to like impact us. People we may never meet, just their stories, their message like has that ability to impact us.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know where you came from, and I'm pretty sure you kind of have an idea of where you want to go in life, but do you feel that, like, now that you're free, that you still, like, struggle and deal with some stuff from prison and your upbringing? Is it still stuff there? And
Absolutely.
So what?
Because you play, like I think as humans, we play these tapes in our head to ourselves, right? You know how when you was in that lifestyle, it's something you played to yourself that kind of like made you stand on who you were. And so like, prime example, I'm at work and a coworker is rubbing me the wrong way. I play this tape in my head like, he don't even know me. He don't even know who I am, right? But that's the conflict. And so like, those are the things, like I don't deal with conflict well because how it makes me feel. Like I tell people, like conflict to you might just be an argument, but conflict to me raises real anxiety. You know, I get real uptight. I get real paranoid, because conflict meant somebody's gonna get hurt. You know, in prison, if you had a situation with somebody, if y'all was talking to each other in a manner to where it was intense, it had to happen. It wasn't no, we just arguing. No, it's either somebody's gonna get socked, somebody's gonna get stabbed. And so like, even though I know the situation doesn't present that, it still makes you feel a certain way. So just getting better with conflict, dealing with it in a more healthier way, you know, just understanding like, just because you feel it doesn't mean you have to absorb, like you have to just let it control you, you know?
What is one of the most brutal things you've seen in prison, and then also one of the most beautiful things that you've seen in prison?
Oh man, I think seeing people get stabbed was so normal. It's kind of hard for me to say it because I've seen people get stabbed. But I think the most heartbreakingest thing I've seen in prison, I spoke to you about it before, was I had a cellie and he was a ward of the state. He didn't have a family. So I used to ask him about his, he's like, I ain't got no family. What? He said, when I grew up, somebody gave me away. He said, my mom, whoever she was, gave me away. I'm like, what? Because I never met nobody like that. And he said, yeah, I grew up in a foster care system. I didn't get adopted, so I was in and out of group homes and all that as I got older. And in that instance, I realized, I said, damn, I thought my situation was bad. At least I got a mom, at least I got a sister. And he took it like with such grace though. He was like all jolly and joy, and he just talked about it like as a matter of factly, but I'm like, damn,
But
I got
do
life.
you think he really felt that way inside, or was kind of like him just putting on this?
I think he was putting on.
Yeah.
I think, but the way he talked about it was so like, I don't know, it's because, like for some reason people like, they talk to me. I can have a lot of, intimate conversation with people, and like, people open up to me. So maybe he felt comfortable telling me that, I don't know, but it was just heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, I'm like, man, his life is really worse than mine. Wow. Even though he's going home, he has a date, he's going home in a couple of years. I got life, but I have a family. I know my creed. I know where I come from.
That's deep, because I tell people that all the time when they complain about things or going through something. Like, your situation could be far worse. It's one of the things I always say. And for you to say that in prison with a life sentence and be able to see that his situation was worse than yours, even though he's going home, that is like a perspective that so many people should have.
Right.
Because people complain about things out here that I just like laugh at. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, this is just ridiculous. Like, and it's hard to make connections with people when you have that way of looking at life.
Yeah, it is.
Because you look at them in a way that's like, this guy or this girl just doesn't know. But then I also empathize, and I realize they haven't been through what we went through.
Absolutely.
What is one of the most beautiful things you've seen in prison?
One of the most beautiful things is like when I changed, man, like I took a lot of people with me, and I didn't even realize it though. I just made a decision, man, and like a lot of people started catching on. And so they would inquire about things. I would have one-on-one conversations with people and stuff like that. And so I remember when I was transpacking, I was leaving to another prison. So when I was at sitting down on level 3, I was going to a level 2. A lot of people were walking up to me and say, hey man, I just want to thank you. You helped me out so much. And me just living my life, I never realized like, oh, I'm helping you out. And so like, I think the most beautifulest thing happened to me in prison was that my change just didn't affect me. It affected so many other people, and I was inspiring them to change. Yeah. And so like to this day, I keep up with a lot of people, and I still get those like, man, thank you. I appreciate you. I'm like, man, that's what's up. That's more fulfilling than anything.
Yeah. That's powerful. So going forward, what are some of your dreams and goals that you that you will accomplish, and like, why are they important to you? Like
one of my like dreams and goals is it's simple, right? I just want to continue with reinvent myself. So like when you reinvent yourself, like how I just told that story in prison, people follow you, man. So if I become successful, I get a house, I get married, I do all these things that people think I can't do. People will follow you, and people follow success. So one of my goals is to like be an example for all people that come from my background, particularly. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't have a role model. Nobody told me, say, hey, look, man, when you graduate high school, you can get a certificate, you can go do this. I never knew about a career path. No one told me about a Roth account. No one told me about a 401k. No one told me about credit. Like, I didn't know shit. And so, like, now I think my goal is to, like, be an influence to everybody around me to understand that life is bigger than your circumstances, man. Like, don't let your circumstances dictate who you are. You can be more than what you see. you know? And so that's
Yeah.
like what I'm working on right now, just, you know, being successful, being an everyday American, working, right? Working on a business, working and say, okay, you can have a job and have a business. But then once your business start booming, you can quit your job, right?
Yeah.
So like, these are the things that I'm working on, man. I'm just trying to, you know, be an example to my family, to my friends, and just keep
Yeah.
on inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for anybody out there listening that wants to gain that inspiration from you, I highly recommend you follow this man on Instagram, Travon_Harris, right?
Yeah, yes.
Trayvon_Harris, because one thing I love about like your Instagram page when I see it is like you'll post things like you were posting one time. You posted you were like at I think the docks,
Yeah.
and there was this big thing coming down like for the truck
Yeah.
because you do truck driving,
Right.
and I was like, you know, like you're there like in the midst of you know, doing the work logistics work. And it's like, but like I remember when we were in prison, you like that was one of the things you talked about doing, like getting out and getting into that business, learning it, understanding it, but always having that look forward that you want to eventually create your own path.
Right.
But I think it's important to note that like sometimes you have to get deep into something before you can branch off and do that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's like you're doing that, and I know like you're documenting in that because it's like that's something that like you're learning from. You're learning how that operates. You're learning how to do things, how to communicate. So when I see that, I'm like, okay, he's documenting these important moments that are leading up to his ultimate goal.
Right.
And it's like that's what we all do in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's because you know I work San Pedro, Long Beach port, so I go in and out the ports, delivering containers, and so like I think the port is like fascinating, man. It's like a big old ant farm.
Yeah,
it's like
huge.
It's huge. You see all these machines and all this stuff, and so you know, so every now and then I will post some. You know, I like to work out and But for the most part, man, I'm really not social media savvy like that. Yeah. I'm kind of like old school. Like I'm like I don't know. You know, threads. What's that? You know.
Yeah.
But
and you don't have to be a social media guy to be successful.
No, absolutely not.
I know more people who are successful, especially financially, in their families that aren't on social media than I know that there are.
Right.
And they just do their work. They do their craft. They built their companies and they do what they do, and they just focus on that.
Right.
So I think it's important to note to like, especially young people that listen, that you don't always have to be on social media to be successful or to like pursue something. You could do it outside of social media and still be successful. It's still possible.
Right, because we live in a microwave society, right? Yeah. I mean, you put something in a microwave, you warm it up, and you can eat it in minutes, right? But that's not how life is.
Right.
You know, you gotta prepare the food. You gotta prep. You gotta season. And what I mean by that is like, when you're out here living, you have to take small steps to further your mission, rather than get your credit together.
Yeah.
You know, hey, if you got bad credit, start working on your credit, man, because you can't do nothing with bad credit. If you don't have a car and you're catching Ubers and catching the metro, hey, work on getting a car. So, you know, those are the things I'm talking about, is that you got to crawl before you can walk. And people try to skip those steps and throw it in the microwave and think it's going to get done, and it's not how it works.
Yeah. So this book I got here in front of us, my book, Warrior in the Garden, 7 Rules for Men. You haven't read it yet. I just gave it to you. And I would say if I had to define this book briefly, it would be the definition of a man.
Right.
So from my life experiences, my way of looking at things, the 7 rules in this book are what defines a man, I believe. And so if you had to define what a man is, what is a man?
I think a man is a man is a leader. When you become a man, you become a leader. Not just a leader of people, but a leader of yourself. Because there's nothing or nobody who can deter you from reaching your goal, because you're going to lead yourself to reach your goal. And once you become a leader of self, then you become a leader of others. You know what I mean? And so, like, a man is someone who's, like, trustworthy. You know, the big thing about, if I tell you something, I'll give you my word, I'm standing on that. Like, if I say, hey, look, I'm going to be there, or I'm going to do this for you.
Yeah.
I mean every ounce of it. There's not going to be no, or I tried. No, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And so I think being a man is being a man of your word, leadership, and being compassionate, man, because, like, growing up in prison, growing up on it, man, it's kind of hard to be compassionate, you know,
Yeah.
because you see so much brutality. And, you know, when you compassionate, you can empathize with people, like, you know,
Yeah.
just having empathy, you know, that really gives you strength. I don't know if you ever heard the story about Salahuddin. He was like a brutal conqueror, right? But he was most famous because he showed mercy to a lot of his enemies. And that's what really like tripped me out about his story. I was like, damn, this dude would conquer a kingdom and tell the king like, yeah, you can live. You know, I just want to take your stuff from you. I don't want to kill you, but I'm gonna let you live. But you know, it's strengthened having compassion, or believe it or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's an awesome way to end this because I feel that there definitely is strength in compassion, and it's not easy to do. And sometimes the most compassionate thing to do requires a hard decision. And so, like I talk to like people that run companies, and they're always like having problems with like laying people off. But I tell them that sometimes one of the most compassionate things you can do is let them go because they're in a place where they don't need to be yet, or maybe they're way in over their head. And imagine what that's creating within them and at home when you're somewhere where you feel like you're really struggling.
Right.
So it's like if you being compassionate doesn't mean being soft. It means doing the right thing when it's meant to be done.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
but thank you so much, Trayvon. Really an honor to have you on here. And I mean, just from this conversation, I could see that you've grown so much since our last one in the beginning.
Right.
So I look forward to getting you back on here in time and seeing where you're at.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, brother.